Welcome to our last week of our COP16 training webinar series. And we are now on the fifth session on this capacity building for people going and following the COP16. And thank you again for having the time to attend this session as well. Okay, so before we move into the discussions today, so we have a very good topics to discuss today regarding COP. We would want to ask everyone that there are interpretations for this session. So you could just click at the bottom part of your Zoom and just go into the room that you needed for the interpretation. So we have Spanish and we have French for the interpretation for today. And for our next slide. And again, please mute your microphone if you are not speaking. And of course, be reminded that this webinar is being recorded as well. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so our fifth session will now talk about our actions in COP. And later we'll be discussing activities with Gibbon. And perhaps you can look into how you could be able to participate if you are going to Cali, Colombia as well. But before that, we would want to ask everyone, how are you? So let's put that in the chat. How is your weekend? So this is the last weekend for the webinar series. And also tell us what you have learned from the past sessions that we had, especially on session 3 and 4, where we talked about understanding the COP and the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. Can you just have a quick moment and put that in the chat box? How was your session from the previous ones? And what's are your kind of like main takeaway from the previous sessions that we had? Do you remember anything from the last weekend? All right, thank you. All right, let's put them in the chat. And maybe if you wanted to share, you can just raise your hand and open your mic as well. If there is something you can share with the group on how was your sessions from last week. Yes, we talked about biodiversity in the concept with the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework and the governance. Yes, so we already have a question. Yes, we'll be sending later the link for the recorded sessions. And then there's also a message here about priority issues for COP. Okay, how about the others? Do you remember anything from the previous sessions? Yes, we talked about perspectives and challenges. Who remember here the discussions with our guests from Latin America and Caribbean? So we have members who talked about COP16 from Colombia, correct? Did anyone remember the topics that we discussed with that? Yeah, it's very interesting. Like I agree, right? So it's the COP of the people. So we discussed that last week as well. Why it was called COP of the people. How about the others? What else did you remember? If you're able to take notes, were you able to check in your notes as well from the previous sessions?
I think maybe Mark was kicked out. Let me see. Is Mark still here? Okay, maybe not. He's gonna come back soon. But thank you everyone for sharing what you've learned from the previous session. We will now be let me see what's in store. Okay, so actually, I will take this from Mark, who seems to have dropped off. Today we'll be starting with a presentation on youth and the Convention on Biological Diversity, which we've touched on a little bit in the previous sessions, but we'll get a, a, a better look at how the Global Youth Biodiversity Network works, and then it will be followed by a bit of Q&A, and then a session on COP16 and what to expect from COP16. Okay, so while I'm waiting, I'll pass back to Mark, who seems to be back while I'm preparing my slides. Just a moment.
Yes. Sorry about that. I kind of
No worries.
technical difficulty with my Zoom now.
It's okay.
Okay. Thank you, Sepa. So while waiting for do we have any more answers on what they have learned from the previous sessions? And just to also answer the questions regarding the recorded sessions, yes, we will share them with you later. So we'll send the link on how you can access the recorded presentations from the previous sessions that we have. And I think Sepa is ready. Sepa, would you like to take over?
I think so. Hopefully it will work. Okay, cool. So yeah, this is just a short presentation on youth and the Convention on Biological Diversity. Okay, so I'll share first this slide, which is a painting, a big mural that um, Gibbon made, in particular Myrna from Bolivia. She made this in the process when the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework was still being negotiated. But I wanted to start by sharing it because it captures many of the key messages that young people have been bringing to the space, like education, Indigenous people's rights, human rights, justice, and intergenerational equity, stopping the same, inclusion, and system-wide transformative change. So I think at this COP as well, we will be looking really at more at the role of arts and culture in advancing kind of the world that we want, right? So we look forward to that. This is to remind everyone that children and youth are actually one of the groups that are most vulnerable to environmental harm. Children and youth are more susceptible, especially children, are more susceptible to the negative health effects of pollution and unclean water and other effects of biodiversity loss. We will also, of course, be living with the long-term consequences of environmental harm. And the decisions that are being made today will impact us far into the future, more than actually the majority of the decision makers that are making those decisions. And in addition to that, young people are also tokenized, marginalized, and excluded from environmental decision making, despite these decisions, again, having direct impacts on us and our future. At the same time, though, we know that children and youth are key actors, key implementers of biodiversity actions that contribute significantly to the global goals and targets, to achieving the world that we want, and are often on the front line of movements for the environment and in conducting collective actions that really bring us closer to living in harmony with nature. And so, yeah, it's important to understand and remember that children and youth need to have a voice in the decisions that impact us and our future. So from that, I want to move on to understanding how young people have been engaging in the CBD, and in particular, more about the work of the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, which you've been hearing many times before, is the international coordination platform for youth participation in the CBD. But more than that, it is really a global community with really like representing a lot of young people. It has 53 national chapters, 4 regional chapters, and counting. A lot of member organizations. So we are actually growing. We have been growing organically since the beginning of when it was founded, and more chapters have been being created to ensure or to facilitate on-ground action, on-ground youth-led action. And we have more and more chapters, like I said, being created at the regional level. For example, Pacific Youth have recently made a plan to form a Pacific chapter of Gibbon. We also have Indigenous youth who have also committed to forming an Indigenous chapter of Gibbon. So that's very exciting news, and this is a community that really has been growing and continues to grow. So these are some of the chapters that really amplify the impact that Gibbon has on the ground. And Gibbon does its work through youth-led action. And I'll talk about 4 key ways on empowerment and capacity building, consultations and policy advocacy, mobilization, campaigning, and narrative change, and also alliance building. Okay. So first on capacity building, a big part of what Gibbon does is really youth-led empowerment and capacity building in a way that is values-based, holistic, and intersectional. And this is being done at the national, regional, and global levels. We also produce a lot of knowledge products that can help facilitate this capacity building and development. So for example, there have been a number of capacity building workshops online, especially during the pandemic, but also in person. One of the most recent initiatives, which maybe many of the participants here now attended, was the International Youth Conference on Biodiversity, which was held in Yokohama, Japan, just in August, and which had a number of key outcomes, including roadmaps for the regions. So aside from capacity building and empowerment, we also do consultations and policy advocacy. So we conduct youth consultations to identify youth priorities that then lead to shared positions for biodiversity. So these positions also are there at the global level, regional level, and national levels, especially so during the development of the global biodiversity framework. There were a lot of consultations that were going on. We also participate in CBD negotiations and bring youth priorities there and conduct intergenerational dialogues with key actors, including, for example, meeting with our governments and CBD focal points. So here are some of the national and regional youth consultations that have been happening in the past, both in person and online. We've also been conducting global consultations on key issues like, so this was one recent one on youth responsive monitoring and indicators. We have been doing consultations on issues like environment, peace and conflict, biodiversity and health, resource mobilization, and others. And then this contribute to our role representing and coordinating youth voices in CBD meetings. So all of these voices from our community kind of contribute to what we bring to as we participate in these negotiations. And yeah, during the meetings like the COP, but also in the meetings between COPs, we coordinate youth participation in these meetings, in policy communications, actions, and side events and other things. So we'll learn more about these later. And then third, regarding mobilization and campaigning, we know that it also needs to go beyond the policy arena, and it needs to reach a broad audience and also kind of contribute to narrative change. And we do this through the work on mobilization and campaigning. One of the biggest campaigns that we did was the Stop the Same campaign, which was really a call for transformative change and stopping kind of the same systems that have been leading us to the current crisis. These are some of the actions that were done during that campaign. And now we have, of course, our Youth into Action campaign, which really aims to mobilize young people for the transformative change that we are fighting for and recognize young people's contributions and actions for biodiversity. And then last is our work on alliance building and partnerships. We create spaces and conditions for like-minded youth to come together with our fellow constituencies, with other youth-led organizations. We do work to align our movements and coordinate positions among youth, indigenous peoples, and local communities, women's organizations, and grassroots NGOs, who are of course our allies in collective advocacy and also action. And we do work to collaborate with a broad range of biodiversity actors, and of course bring our priorities also into their sphere, and to also kind of leverage their influence to bring those to more diverse actors and sectors. So that is a bit, just a quick overview of how Given works through, and this is really kind of in the work, even in the work that we do in the CBD, we consider it to be all of these things, so that the positions that we bring to the global level are really kind of rooted in from the ground, and also kind of making sure to bring those back to the community. And yeah, this is a slide I've shown before, but this is all towards really working for the world that we want, which is a just and equitable society living in harmony with nature, and that actually realizes transformative change, and is doing this through the values and principles that guides our community on equity, collective well-being, empathy, justice, and so on and so forth. So looking forward, we are kind of working to harness young people's roles and values when it comes to policy and implementation. You've heard many times about the participation in NBSAP updating, in pushing for effective and equitable national targets, youth-responsive monitoring, rights-based implementation, intergenerational equity and collaboration in many different ways, and then transformative education, and also, yeah, youth-led implementation. So I think that's it for this first presentation. I'll pass back to Mark for
Thank you,
any
Chef.
questions if there is. Yeah.
So Sefa will continue the presentation regarding COP activities, but for now, while she's preparing the slides, does anyone have any question from what Sefa mentioned? I think, Sefa, I agree that whatever we do with Given, either capacity building or implementation or mobilization, values and principles are very important, so that our directions towards really looking into equity and inclusivity and rights-based approach are also met. So for anyone interested or have any questions from that presentation, otherwise we move to the next slides, Sefa, for COP.
Cool. Okay, I think I'm ready. Let me share. So yeah, hopefully many of you already knew a lot of that I just presented, but if you do have more questions about how Given works, I think many people here are willing to help me answer that in the chat. We're going to our next presentation, which now moves again back towards the COP and what to expect. So in last week's session, we recommend, we'll share the recording of that, and we recommend that you view it. It touched a bit more about the context of why this of where this COP is happening, what is the messaging around it, what are the perspectives from Latin American youth about it, what are the implications of this COP, and things like that. So we also shared a little bit more about youth priorities in the negotiations, but this time we'll try to move a bit more concrete to what to expect for young people who will be there, and also just what will be happening. So yeah, let me know if there are any questions. Please put them in the chat so that we can answer them at the end. So this is just repeating that COP16 is the 60th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the CBD. It has the theme Peace with Nature. It will be happening on October 21 to November 1 in Cali, Colombia. Yeah, and then yeah, this presentation, we're not going to go deep into how the CBD works. This is also tackled in one of the previous sessions, but we do recommend reading CBD in a nutshell if you also want to catch up and find out more than what we were able to present. Okay. So first, on where to find information about this COP, there are kind of 3 websites worth checking out. First is the host website, cop16colombia.com. It has more information about the blue zone, the green zone, which I'll talk about later, and then the Colombia Pavilion that's going to be happening at COP. We also have the official CBD webpage on COP16. So this is the URL. It will, here on this website, you will find the official COP documents, the negotiation documents, the negotiation schedule. Any statements that will be made during COP will also be uploaded there, so you can see what your countries might be saying during this time. They'll also be sharing the schedule of side events here, or they're already up actually. And any information for participants will also be on this website. And then during the meeting itself, they do live stream some of the negotiation sessions. They will be doing this on CBD's YouTube channel, live YouTube channel. So it's cbd.int/live. And that will be more active once COP starts. Okay. So what is this blue zone and green zone that I was talking about? So during this COP, this is actually the first CBD COP that will have this kind of dynamic. There is what we call the blue zone and the green zone. The blue zone is the venue for the COP. It's managed by the Secretariat of the CBD and administered by UNEP, and it's exclusively for official delegations from member countries, representatives of international organizations, UN agencies, observers that have been officially accredited by the CBD Secretariat. So this is only for accredited participants. But outside of the blue zone, this is where you will find the green zone. So this is from the COP host website. It says the green zone will be the epicenter of the mobilization and participation strategy where the People's COP will materialize. In this space, companies, organizations, and civil society will share their vision and commitments for the protection of biodiversity. So I think in the vision of the host, this is where we can get perspectives from the public and bring them into the blue zone, so to speak. And then it says that interested national and international organizations already applied for events as partners and exhibitors in the green zone. So the application is actually finished, and people interested in attending can visit and participate as long as you register on the COP host website, which is this first one here. Okay. So yeah, this is the first time this is going to be practiced in the CBD. This is actually practiced often in the climate convention. So we'll see how it goes. This is one of the innovations of COP16. And then COP16 has a number of different spaces where young people and anyone attending actually can engage in the negotiations, the side events. There's this space called Place Quebec, thematic days, press conferences, actions, morning coordination meetings, and the green zone. So I'll go through these one by one. So first, the negotiations. Let's see. So this one first, maybe. So at COPs, all parties come together. So the countries come together to negotiate and agree on a set of commitments that should be implemented by every country at the national level. So there are different kinds of sessions during the negotiations. We have plenary sessions where all of these are kind of for, just a second, let me just mute, there's background noise. Okay, so the plenary sessions are open and live streamed and can be viewed on YouTube, like I showed. We also have working group sessions. So we have the plenary, which is for everyone, and then they will split into 2 working group sessions which will then negotiate different items in parallel and then be split again into contact groups in a way, which are smaller sessions for negotiations. And all of these will be happening throughout the whole COP60. I don't have the time to explain all of this, but the CBD in a nutshell document does have a good overview and understanding of the negotiation process. Actually, I should have gone here. So this is kind of the overview of the COP. So aside from these meetings, so these are the negotiations, we also have a youth summit before, so this will be touched on later. We have a number of thematic days that are happening throughout. There's Place Quebec, which is happening from certain dates. There's also what we call a Global Biodiversity Framework Pavilion, which I'll touch on later, and side events. And there's a high-level segment, which is when many of the environmental ministers will be coming together towards the end of the COP. Okay. And then right before the COP, actually, we have another meeting called SBI 5. So this is the 5th meeting of the subsidiary body on implementation. Okay, so continuing on the negotiations, these again will be happening only in the Blue Zone. We touched on this last meeting, but this is the COP16 agenda. We will be touching on a number of different items, more than 20 or even more than 30 items. Okay. And then this is the negotiation schedule, which we won't go into in depth, but it's usually happening with a morning slot from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., an afternoon slot from 3 to 6 p.m., and an evening slot, unfortunately, from 7:30 to 10:30 p.m. So that's the schedule. But there's a break in the middle from 26 to 27. So that's on the negotiations. There are also, of course, side events going on that are being hosted by all kinds of organizations alongside the negotiations, but outside, but also in the Blue Zone. These are 80-minute sessions allocated during these times. So this is more than usual because there were so many people that applied. So they wanted to give space to everyone or to as many as they could. So there are many side events discussing all kinds of things about biodiversity. You can view them on this page. I think you might also be able to find some details on whether there are hybrid events, but I think I heard that it might be difficult also with the kind of infrastructure that is available for side events. But you can view all of them here. Some of them might be offered in a hybrid format, so those following virtually will be able to view those. And then there's a space called Place Quebec. It's called this because it's sponsored, I think, by the government of Quebec in Canada. So this is an interactive space for multi-stakeholder networking located in the heart of the Blue Zone. So it will have exhibition space for different constituencies and stakeholder groups, including youth. It will have a lounge area for networking and small gatherings, an exchange center for workshops and training sessions, and an auditorium for some dedicated sessions. We will also, aside from that, there are thematic days and parallel events. I won't go through all of them, but for certain days, there will be spaces at the COP to talk about specific things. So like, for example, there's a women forum, a cities forum, nature and culture summit from 26 to 27. I'm excited about. And then there's a science policy forum, business and biodiversity forum, finance and biodiversity day, and things like that. So the details of these can actually be found on the CBD website. So the cbd.int website. There's also going to be a Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework Pavilion, which will be coordinated by the CBD Secretariat, which also has specific days during the time that it's gonna be operating. There will be space for media and for holding press conferences. So different organizations, including Given, will be probably holding a few conferences at different points of the COP. There are also actions that happen which are small peaceful demonstrations happening within the COP venue. So these usually require security clearance. So they don't, just a warning, if you do want to do actions, you might need to get security clearance. There's the green zone, and more details of this are in the host website. So again, it's this space to really encourage participation of civil society, and other actors and all those interested in biodiversity, who will be in Cali, and probably even mainly the people of Colombia. So they do have certain thematic days also for the green zone. There will be morning coordination meetings. So regional groups, parties, major stakeholder groups, including youth, and rights holder groups, including youth. So others will be we will be holding kind of in the morning before the negotiations begin, some coordination meetings to set our course for the day. So we'll see also if we can offer these in hybrid format. It depends. And then yeah, so that's kind of all the different things that people can expect at COP16. So I think that's hopefully a good overview for those people who are going, and also a good overview of what might be available for virtual participation. So back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Sefa. That's very useful for everyone who's going to COP. Does anyone has questions for Sefa regarding COP16 activities and spaces? You can raise your hand as well if you want to talk, or otherwise you can put that question in the chat. Anyone? Okay, we'll give you some few more seconds to think about your question. Right, okay. If you don't have any question, then okay. Sefa, there's a question from Nasri on the chat.
Oh, for logistics and stuff, I think there might be a separate session for, like, once we um for things like for people who are already going. I think maybe we can have a separate briefing on these specifics. Happy to, yeah. Sorry, Nashi, we'll maybe not touch on this webinar, but like we'll answer it at some point when we have a better idea of who will be there, or maybe even at COP itself. No, not at COP itself, but some of them, can be touched in a separate briefing.
Yeah. Thank you, Sefa. Yeah, Nas will be having probably another meeting for the delegates to talk about this and the do's and don'ts as well for COP. But we'll keep this in mind, Nas. Thank you, and we'll invite you as well for that meeting. All right. So do you have any other questions for Sefa regarding COP16? There's a question from Jafet. There's a zone for action zone, Sefa. Would you know about this?
Me, I don't know. Let me find out. But right now, I don't think I know what this is. It might be a space for actions, but I'll try to find out and see if I can get back to you before the webinar ends.
Thank you, Sefa. And another question from Bricks will be, are we
Yes,
creating
probably
Telegram?
for the delegation.
Yeah, so Bricks, yes, will be creating a Telegram or WhatsApp group for the delegates.
Okay. If it's Place Quebec, then it's the one that I described earlier, which is the space for major groups to have booths and pavilions, I think, and then place to organize. So this might be one of the spaces available in Place Quebec to do things. But I don't have many details.
We have a good question from Camille as well, Sefa. How can youth delegate best participate in the blue zone to have an impact?
So we'll be sharing a bit later more details so it's upcoming more about what Gibbon will be doing there. So please stay tuned for the next session is exactly going to talk about this. Yeah.
You, any other question for Shefa? Going once? Okay, we have a question from Josh. Oh, yes. Yes, Josh, we're recording this session and then we will share it to everyone. We have a question from Mahamadu, but perhaps if Shanda could translate in English so we could have Sefa answer it. And so we have another question from Jafet. How can we participate in Gibbon activities in Blue Zone?
That's coming next. So please
Yeah.
just wait. The next session is really about youth activities at COP. So please wait. So this was just a general overview of COP itself. And then to participate in the Blue Zone and Green Zone, you will need accreditation and register for the Green Zone. The Green Zone registration is in the COP16 host website. Let me share that website again. Let's see, COP16. Here, you will find the registration for the Green Zone here in the website that I just shared, and then the formal negotiations can be accessed as far as we know, as long as you have a Blue Zone badge. But we don't have information yet whether they will be restricting the numbers because of space. So that's kind of the consideration that we might have, where they might have limited badges for youth, for example, to enter the negotiation rooms themselves. Side events have been confirmed. There's now a final list. Let me find the website for this again. So all the side events in the Blue Zone are in this website. Okay, and then the CBD website is here. Okay. So I think that's it, Mark.
Right.
Unless
Thank you, Shefa. So just to remind, I guess the question from Hamadu for the access to Blue Zone and Green Zone, so you have to be accredited for that access, right, Shefa?
yes.
I'm correct. Perfect. Okay. Thank you,
And
everyone.
then, sorry, last
Sure,
question
sure.
maybe from Hilda on how to participate if they won't be in Cali, but want to help. So this is actually tomorrow's session also, I think, Mark. Yeah.
Yeah.
On how to, maybe later and tomorrow we will touch about how to help. But there are a number of ways to just start, like we might be able you might be able to support tracking the negotiations, or you might be able to attend some of the events that are happening in hybrid, or supporting communications and things like that. But we'll find out more about this hopefully in the next session. Yeah.
Thank you, Shefa. We'll try to answer the other questions on the chat later on. But for now, just to move ahead, can I ask everyone for a quick photo with the group? So if you could open your camera before we take a 5-minute break, just to capture all of the participants today for this session. Okay. Thank you, everyone. So let's see those beautiful faces and beautiful smile during the weekend. Okay, so I have 3 pages to capture, so please bear with me while I capture everyone's photo for this session. Okay, I'm taking the first photo now. Smile, everyone. Okay, that's the first page. I'm moving to the second one. Please keep smiling. I'm taking the second photo. Right now, I'm moving to the last. Let me just take your photo. And there we go. Thank you, everyone. So before we go to the next session, so our next session would be talking about specific activities now, youth activities for COP. But first, we will have a 5-minute break, and we'll see you after 5 minutes. Please come back after 5. Thank you. See you later, everyone. Okay. Is everyone here? Please send us a thumbs up or any reactions at the chat just to know you're here so we can continue the discussion for the rest of the session. Okay, so to continue our session, may I call in Alan Valdez from Gibbon to share with us the overall picture of Gibbon activities at COP16. Alan, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Thank you, Mark, for inviting me and tell a little bit how, like, the big picture on this COP16 is going to happen and how many events are we going to have during the event. So I just want to start like just remembering a little bit that this is a space that starts with pre-events led by youth and young people. Led by young people, particularly and after the 2 weeks of COP. So before of that, we have different levels of participation also regarding our commitments at national, regional, and international level. So we have some participation at national level with some alliances with the space of ELECOI that they will be working on these links between climate change and biodiversity, but at international level, we will have the summit for biodiversity that will be happening this 19 and the 20 of October near in the Green Zone. And this is an event that is expected to have more than 400 young people around the world. We're also many from Colombia, that this is like a commitment for the government to bring a lot of young people to participate in this space and to start to know what is going on regarding biodiversity and the decisions that are taken on these spaces. After that, they will be starting the whole COP. Well, we also have there like a space of participation from the policy team regarding the negotiations, intersessional negotiations on SBI. There, I'm not wrong, there are three days of negotiations on that regard. And then we will start with the COP, that is like 2 weeks, full weeks, full of activities in two spaces, different spaces. As Sefa mentioned, we will have, for one instance, the Green Zone, that is a new zone that is...
Alan, sorry to cut you. Can you speak a bit slower for our interpreters, please?
Yes,
Thank you,
I
Alan.
forgot a little bit. Yeah, so for one instance, we will have the Green Zone, that is a new zone that is happening for the first time in the COP of biodiversity. There is a lot of events that will where we also will be. As international level, we have 2 events there, but also we have one event that is like one of the most important, that is led by Colombia. But also there are some chapters that will be there also presenting some, having some side events in the Green Zone. We are collecting all of those opportunities, so every people that will be there can be encouraged to attend them. The other instances that we will have the Blue Zone, and in the Blue Zone is where many of the discussions happens, but also many of the, I will say, like the core of the process is happening there. For one instance, we will have the whole process of negotiations that will be led by the policy team, and they will share a little bit more later on that regard. We will have the side events that are led by young people, but also other side events that are important to the process of the negotiations, that we also will be participating as invitees, as speakers, as moderators. So as Sefa mentioned, we will be collecting some of them also, so every person can know which events are where the young people is, right? Where is young people participating, leading, and also making our voices being heard. So beyond that, we also have these spaces. We prepare some spaces particularly for the participation of young people. One of those is also a new one led by, well, it's not so new, it started like the last year, is the Youth Pavilion. The Youth Pavilion is a space that many young people can propose their events and make things happen if they cannot found any place beyond the other pavilions that will be there or the main side events. So this is a space for the young people. And the idea is to network, to connect, to share with many young people around the world, but also particularly with those attending COP. There will be also an space for communications. We are preparing a strategy so the people that are really interested on to create content, on to communicate what is happening in this scope, so other young people can understand what is this space, what this space is important, why it is important that young people participate in these spaces. Well, so communications will be the space that you will be interested to participate in. We will bring more information for those that are well, attending directly to the COP, because we will need people that help making interviews, making content, see how people are participating, highlighting the participation of young people, but also those spaces where young people are sharing what they are doing at the grassroots level in their countries. We also continuously have the high level people like as Carlos Manuel, but this instance are there.
Okay, I think we lost Alan there so we'll get back to Alan when he's back with his internet. For now, we continue with the discussion regarding co-op activities from Gibbon, and I'm happy to call in Ana Maria Algara from Gibbon, Colombia, to share some of the activities in the Green Zone. Anna, please go ahead. You're muted, Anna. Thank you.
Everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
So my name is Ana Maria. Thank you for your participating in this session. So today I will explain 3 events we organized at Giving and Giving Colombia in COP16. So the first, they are located in the Youth Pavilion in the Blue Zone. This event has the objective of publishing different youth initiatives in territories, and I don't talk about this because it's in the Blue Zone, and later a college will explain it better. But this some event. The other event in the Green Zone seek to generate the position of intergenerational equity and conservation policies, guaranteeing that your people have an equitable and fair role in the framework of peace with nature and monitoring of the biodiversity network. Its name is Youth Defensor of Biodiversity and is 33 October. Yeah. The last event is Youth for Biodiversity and Multi-Ethnic Futures. This event is incredible in product of efforts to show how important it's to give voice to youth and the different countries in this space. So this is my and I feel happy with the event because it's a big opportunity for understand more about the COP and intercultural options for two ideologies and more options for understand what is the what is the objective of this space in our countries and in different space. So thank you so much, and continues with the session.
Thank you, Anna. Could you please put the title of the events and the date in the chat so everyone would be able to take notes of the date specifically and the event as well in the green zone. And we have Alan back. Alan, would you like to continue your share and then
Yes. Thank you, Mark. Sorry, the connection got lost. So I was saying this space about communication, so about particularly creation of content and participation of young people there, highlighting how important is that young people be there as participants. There are also other events that we mainly participate that are more like workshops and so on that are happening there. Many of them this time is just to are waiting for the invitation for young people. These particular events, as there will be two spaces, will be kind of messy because many events will be happening at the same times. So we also are thinking to get easy this information for the participants there, because it's being if it's easy get lost in a COP that is particularly or has been always only the blue zone. Just imagine how complicated it will be now having two spaces with many events happening at the same time. So the idea is that to share to the young people that will be attending these spaces so they also can track and decide which events that they wanted to participate. This is also something that we encourage to young people that enjoy this process, but also to help in the process that we are creating as a community, as a platform, because we will have many events and we will have hands. We will need hands. So we'll need also the volunteers of for many of these aspects. And just for the last instances that we are creating a space that is not like a physical space, is just like make this platform to make more friendly for young people to participate at COP, because many people can be lost, as I mentioned, and this is an important step for us. So to accomplish the full and effective participation of young people in these spaces, because at the beginning it's easy to maintain a delegation of 20 or 25, but our delegation starts to get bigger and bigger, and we are now having these new spaces to make the young people to participate in the better way. So understanding the spaces and also understanding which are their interests, so we can advise where they can go. So this is like a new space that we are developing for the young people that will be participating at COP, so they cannot get lost so easily, as many of them will be participating in their first COP. So I think I finished with that, Mark, so the others can go more in detail.
thank you, Alan, and thank you for the reminder on how it's going to be busy at COP. So it's very important for us to really know what side events or activities that we wanted to go to all throughout the sessions. So it's very good to be reminded and take note of the dates and the zones of the activities as well. Thank you for that, Alan. So our next would be some details on the side events, which I will share a video from our team explaining the youth side events from Gibbon.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. So today me, Sudha Kotlil and Shruti Kotlil, both of us will be presenting, giving you an overview of the side events that Gibbon is going to do at COP16. This will be just a quick overview of the different sessions that we'll have. A lot more are getting confirmed, so we will keep you posted as things finalize. So both of us are part of Gibbon's partnership and collaborations team. We also lead a couple of projects, and at COP16, one of our responsibilities would be to look at oversee some of the side events that's happening. So the first two side events for Gibbon are the official side events that got accepted by the CBD Secretariat. So these two events are going to happen along the sidelines of these negotiations. And the first one that we have is breaking ground on youth indicators for biodiversity. So this is being led by the policy team, where they're developing a lot of youth indicators in terms of measuring youth actions and activities towards the implementation of the KMGBF, ensuring that youth contributions are considered and are considered significantly and are considered important. So one of the key partners here is UNESCO, and it's happening on the 23rd of October at 3 p.m. Colombia time. And the theme for them, as I mentioned before, are youth indicators, KMGBF, and youth contributions. The second one, official side event, is the nurturing intergenerational collaboration with youth for national biodiversity governance and action. It's happening with a lot of different governments like Singapore, Brazil, Uganda, Mexico, Kenya, and Colombia. It's happening on the 31st of October at 1:20 p.m. local time. And key themes for this are NPSAP, youth inclusion, and KMGBF implementation. So here, this side event would tackle the importance of including youth in NPSAP processes and how we should ensure and nurture intergenerational collaborations and dialogues within these conversations. The other important side event is third one is the vital role of youth in environmental and peace building efforts. So as we did submit this as an official side event, given that the theme of COP16 is peace with nature, but unfortunately this was not accepted as an official side event. So we're trying to bring them into other important spaces, and one of them being the Youth Day on October 22nd. So this would be in partnership with Peace Nexus Foundation, and the themes for this are peace with nature, conflict sensitivity, KMGBF implementation. We are trying to drive in the fact that youth play an important role in peace building effort, and a conflict sensitive lens needs to be applied and approached in GBF implementation, as well as the implementation of various conservation projects. The fourth important one that we'll be doing along with the CBD Secretariat is on 27th of October in the evening. And this is going to be a closing event for the Ocean Day, which is titled as Crafting a Better Future. So this will be a bit of an innovative or different format, where we will try to bring in videos and voices from grassroots level youth and local communities, as well as indigenous people who are involved in marine conservation, ocean conservation, or fisheries sectors. So this is being done, as I mentioned, with the CBD Secretariat. The fifth one is a roundtable discussion on youth and finance, and this is being done along with the Nordic Council and Nordic Council of Ministers, as well as the Nordic Youth Biodiversity Network. It's happening on the 23rd of October, 2 p.m. at the Youth Pavilion. So one of the main themes for this is financing youth-led actions, having youth-led grant, and even trust-based participatory grant mechanisms. So here we'll address the important topic of financing youth and how youth can better access finance, as well as how can governments, philanthropies, NGOs, and other organizations start and support youth-led actions and activities through better funding mechanisms. The sixth and the seventh, the sixth is on transformative change and how we can achieve that through the implementation of the GBF. And seventh one, titled as Criminally Underfunded, what we can change the system of and provide better support for major groups, constituencies, and grassroots groups within the CBD. So these two important topics are, we'll also have events on these two important topics. The date, time, and place for these are yet to be confirmed. So we're trying to look for a suitable space. It can either be at the Youth Summit or the Youth Pavilion or some other important pavilions that will have a space at COP16. Now I'll hand it over to Shruti to talk about the different events that are led by partners.
Yeah, thank you. So I think now we know the events that are led by Gibbon, but now there are also several other events that are led by partners. And the first one is through the government of Colombia, and I think is mostly looked at by Gibbon Colombia team. So it's Global Children and Youth Environmental Agenda, the Road 2030. So this is how we can incorporate children and youth into the implementation of KMGBF and finding effective means and methods to include them in this process. So that will happen on October 22nd at 1:30 local time. And then the second one is in IYCB. So we had a conference in Japan last month, which was called the International Youth Conference on Biodiversity. And here we'll be discussing the outcomes of that conference in the form of a webinar. And the partners are the CBD Secretariat, and it will also happen on the 22nd, which happens to be the Youth Day, and it will happen in the auditorium in the morning. So the time is yet to be confirmed. And some of these details that we have not that we are not able to share with you here today, we will make sure that it's there either on social media or spread across different channels and networks. And then the third one is youth leadership and agroecology, catalyzing biodiversity conservation agri-food systems. So this is a very important conversation on agrobiodiversity and how youth can be involved in that. And we're trying to mainstream that conversation in this context of KUM GPF as well as in the general broader context of biodiversity conservation. And it'll happen on October 23rd with the World Food Forum and FAO. Next. Yeah, and the other two are also partnership for accelerating meaningful youth participation for the KMGPF. So it's done with the United Nations University and it'll happen on October 30th at 10:10 in the morning. And the fifth one, that's something that's yet to be confirmed, is Education Day, which will be hosted by IUCN and involving several other partners, Gibbon being one of them, and it will happen on the 23rd of October. And some of our members would be part of the Education Day, either involving themselves as speakers or as panelists. This is something that we'll give you more information on. Next. Yeah, and some of the other events are yet to be discussed or finalized. So one of them is putting education back in NBSAP. So it's a partner with WWF. And we still are yet to see how Gibbon would be involved in that event, in what capacity. And we don't know the date and the timings yet. So all of this is yet to be confirmed. And the other one is event on fundraising by Synchronicity Earth. So it will talk about youth and the challenges of fundraising for youth-led initiatives and activities and how we can better access those different resources. And the other one is also an event on the intersectionality of biodiversity and climate. So we're trying to bridge that gap. We try to do it in COP15. We're also trying to do it this time at COP16 to bridge that gap between biodiversity and climate. And that is an event that's still in talks with. And other than all of this, we also have several bilateral meetings that are happening, which are based on projects with different partners. So that will involve a lot of other Gibbon community members who are either based in the project or want to start conversations around these different projects and campaign ideas that Gibbon has with various partners. So it'll not happen either it'll not be an open discussion, but more of a closed discussion with the required members. So yeah, I hope all of this gives you an overview of the events and our activities at COP16. And I hope to see most of you there in many of these events. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sudha. Thank you, Shruti. And I'm apologizing to our interpreters. Sorry, I cannot make it a bit slower because if I make it a bit slower, it's too slow. So sorry about that. So that's kind of like the side events that we will be having in COP. Don't worry, we'll be sending a directory as well to those who are going to COP in Cali, so that there's a directory of the activities that will happen there. We're trying to figure out that as well on how we could create that information all together. So that's the side events. And now we move to other activities from COP, which is again the youth summit. So we also have that. Let me just share my screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen? So for another activity with Gibbon and partners, and Gibbon Colombia is also taking the lead, is the Global Youth and Children Summit for Biodiversity. And this will happen in the Green Zone on October 19 and 20. So if you are going to Cali, there has been a registration form that has been sent online. So if you wanted to attend, please register, and this will be on the Green Zone. And oops, okay.
It wasn't full screen, Mark, so I'll help you there.
Oh, thank you, Seth. Okay, so that's the Youth and Children Summit for October 19 and 20, and the activities for the summit are as follows. Can we go to the next slide? So these are the activities that will be happening in the summit. So we'll have intergenerational dialogue. So we'll be inviting speakers from different representatives to talk about different topics related to the theme of the summit. And then we'll also have parallel activities, which includes arts and storytelling. So we'll do artworks there and do a bit of artivism and storytelling as well. And the last activity would be on the youth showcase, where we would learn best practices of different youth conservation works all throughout the globe. And of course, representatives from LAC and Gibbon, Colombia as well. So these are the major activities that will be happening in the Youth and Children Summit for Biodiversity on the Green Zone on October 19 and 20 in Cali. And after that, we will also have the Youth Pavilion. So the person who's in charge of the Youth Pavilion is not here in the meeting for now, because they actually having a meeting now regarding Youth Pavilion as well. But the Youth Pavilion will run from October 22 to October 30, from 9:30 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. So as you can see in the social media that we have, we also ask youth to apply for activities for the Youth Pavilion. And this Youth Pavilion is actually dedicated for youth and youth groups and network organizations that are working with the youth and also doing making sure that the youth voices are being amplified and heard in COP16. So that's the Youth Pavilion as well. And we will share the list of the activities of the Youth Pavilion as well in the next few days. And I think last we have our policy information for COP16. And for that, may I call in Ether? Ether, would you like to share as well on the policy side?
Yes, thank you, Mark. So hello, everyone. Just two very quick slides. As you have also heard in the previous webinars, during the whole COP, huge part of it is the negotiations that are going to the different parties and major groups. So from the policy side, we will be following and tracking negotiations, which means that we are going to be in the meetings, following, listening, but also recording all the process. We are going to be coordinating the interventions on behalf of the youth. So for this year, because of the huge quantity of agenda items, not all agenda items will have first reading interventions, but for those who have, we are going to do interventions and also prepare ourselves to be part of the contact groups to guarantee that youth perspectives are bringing into the discussions and decision making. We also are going to be lobbying with governments, which means that we want to guarantee that our positions are being included, and we need parties supporting our positions to be included in the documents. And policy team will also support and be part of side events and other bilateral meetings, where we are also trying to support sharing knowledge and sharing what we have been listening inside of the negotiations with everyone around. It has been questioned, so policy is also considering to have Telegram chat where we will try our best to also guarantee updated information regarding negotiations itself. And it's also a place where people can join and support if they are following negotiations virtually. And for this year particularly, we also had the Gibbon policy team. So here you can see our policy team. The policy team was built based on an open call that was launched, if I'm not wrong with dates, on April. It was launched through the Gibbon community for an open forums. We had applications for all over the world. And we selected the policy team based it on the expertise related to the agenda items and guarantee that we are including regional balance, gender balance, and also marginalized and non-marginalized groups being represented. So as you can see here, we have me from Brazil, Sefa from Philippines, Arifu from Bangladesh, Excel from Sweden, Tamari from Fiji, Daniela from Mexico, Esteban from Colombia, Phoebe from Indonesia, Joel from Dominican Republic, Mary from France, Sanda from Madagascar, Roberto from Burundi, Rania from Germany, Sean Harry from Myanmar, and then Lily from South Africa. And this will be the team that will be coordinating all the policy team process. And soon we will also share these in networks where you can also see which agenda items we are going to be following respectively. So that's it on our side. Thank you.
Thank you, Aether. So those are the activities that we expect for Gibbon to take lead with different zones from blue zone and green zone. And now we want everyone, if you have questions for those who presented today and regarding the details of some of the activities as well. So you can raise your hand and just open your mic and share your questions for the speakers. Please go ahead. So we have question from Carla regarding the Youth Pavilion and the result of this. So we will be sharing the result of the Youth Pavilion online, and we will also send you email regarding the result of the applications for the Youth Pavilion. Okay, so maybe perhaps Aether and Safa, you can perhaps answer sa dulo regarding the question on notification as delegation from for COP.
Maybe Alan, do you have this information? I think very soon. That's what I know. Sorry, I'm not the one also coordinating this process. This is being handled by our steering committee as far as I am aware. Alan, do you know?
Can you repeat
Yeah.
the question? Yeah.
When will the results of the youth delegation expressions of interest come out?
Oh, so yeah, it's kind of a delay, as you may know, that we expected to bring it the 2 of October, but we still are reviewing some particular cases. So I hope we can send as soon as possible the results.
Thank you, Alan. So Saldo, please monitor your email for the result in the next few days probably. Thank you for that question. Do we have other question for the given activities for COP?
I saw one in the chat, Mark, just to mention to Carla Lumba that the reception of applicants for the Youth Pavilion just closed last Monday at 30.
So now, Alan, they are the confirmations will be sent soon, right? If they have been selected.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Okay, any other questions? Okay, if there's no more question, I guess that ends our session for this Saturday. Thank you everyone. But before we go, I'm sharing the attendance sheet on the chat. Please sign the attendance sheet. And now I'm also sharing the link of the previous sessions. So I'll share with you the recorded sessions from session 1 to 4. So you could access them as well before going to COP. So there. So I sent 2 links. And tomorrow, please be here same time. Tomorrow we'll be talking about the thematic areas that we will share as well. And then we'll have a short sharing and brainstorming regarding what we wanted to do, if we are going to COP to Cali, or if we just gonna be monitoring the COP16 online. So that's the discussion for tomorrow. See you everyone again tomorrow. Thank you for your time. And thank you for our interpreters. And of course, thank you to our speakers for today. See you tomorrow.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.